Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Today's guest is Professor David Some. He's the CEO of the Commission for University Education. And during the break, quite a few messages have come in, and all of them complaints. I'll give you a few. The problem is that our professors are not evolving to reflect the current trend. Ask the professor how many lecturers are involved in research. And that came from James in Eldoret. Technical University of Kenya is accredited by the Commission, yet we can't register with the ERBA and Borax. Please explain. And then Joseph in Eldoret, what is the role of professional bodies such as the LSK, ERB, KVB in the accreditation of respective programs? And that ties in directly with what's happening with the engineers and the fact that some courses are not recognized. How do you explain that?
Let me start the whole area of what we call professional courses, because in Kenya there are 19 of them. This is a course that has a law that when you complete the course you will be registered as a profession, so that veterinarians, doctors, surveyors, architects, engineers, lawyers, the list goes on. There are 19 of them. What is done the world over is something we call dual accreditation. We accredit it for being a university degree, and the professional society will accredit it as a professional course. However, there has been a specific problems with the Engineers Board of Kenya in two respects. They are an engineers board, and we believe as a commission that engineers happen to be engineers when a chancellor graduates them. It is not before that. So we are the accreditor of the final choice because we know the entire universities. This is between two laws, the law of engineers and the law of the universities. One law through the president gives the university an accreditation report to start engineering. Another law gives the board to say, no, you cannot do engineering. So this is really going to have to be resolved in the House, in the National Assembly.
But shouldn't the universities respect the professionals? Because even those people who are teaching in that university are members of the board. Yeah. So there cannot be any conflict there. There should not be a conflict, but you know, the conflict here is a conflict of law. It's not conflict of individuals.
Maybe you can go back to history. I remember when I was first in the university, there was a very good Professor Jorgensen, yes, who was in charge of the faculty of architecture, and they were restricting students who are entering the profession purely for selfish reasons. The same thing with law. I remember students used to restrict law students because the industry did not welcome new people because of competition. Is that the case with engineers?
I think that's a different window to look at. But there is another window to this, and I can use the window of accountants, for example. A lot of people used to say they're being restricted through an examination. But if you look at that exam, as I said, I'm an engineer, that exam is a tough exam. So when people fail, they say we're being restricted. So really, in some ways, professional courses are tough courses, so to speak. The one of architecture, for example, is a tough course. It takes 6 years to train, and so forth. So really, there is two windows to look at it. You could say the industry, the professionals who know the industry very well are restricting, but they are also giving a standard. Look at the ones for buildings, for example. When a building collapses, we blame the architect, we blame the engineer who was building it, and so forth. This is what they are protecting. This is what professional societies are protecting, to be able to have good people coming in.
So as it stands now, you have said only 4 universities can offer the engineering course. The rest, Technical University, Masinde Muliro and the others, are not applicable.
Under the Universities Act, we have accredited 14 universities to offer engineering. And they meet the minimum standards.
It's the engineers
it's the board that now says those are not, their standards are different from ours, and that they say the universities...
Okay, just explain why there should be a difference, because the people who give you recommendation as a university when you establish a course must be from the same accreditation board of the engineers. So where is the discordance?
As I say earlier, to offer a degree, you require a thematic leader, a senior lecturer, a professor in that area, and maybe 3 or 4 engineers in that area. But we will accept engineers that are teaching engineers from technology, from economics, from mathematics. Those we will accept as students. I've funded the Universities Act because Universities Act is about knowledge. It's not about practice. The board is about practice.
So
they look at it narrow in the engineers, in what is going to be practiced, as we look at it in what is going to develop the human being.
So in practical terms, what happens to the students? Are they then stopped from becoming engineers, joining an engineering firm? What recourse do they have, because they're caught in a limbo between yourselves and the engineering board?
I think engineers is a wrong example at this point. Let's use the Council for Legal Education, where if you want to practice as a lawyer, you have to go to the law school and be admitted to the bar. If you
let's
want,
stay with the example of engineers because it's current.
Let me give it as an example. If you don't want to practice as a lawyer, you can remain without going to the bar, and you can go and teach. Even some of our Supreme Court judges never went to the bar, but they are legal minds, of great legal mind. And so are engineers. What the board is saying, to teach engineering, you have to have a practicing license. But to teach engineering, according to the University Act, you have to have a PhD. You have to have the knowledge to innovate and to create new knowledge. So these are where the laws actually conflict. Let's be very honest. It's a legal conflict.
I understand that there's a legal conflict, but I'm asking you, I'm a student and I'm at a university, Masinde Muliro University, and I'm told by the engineering board that my degree isn't worth anything. What do I do?
Actually, the engineers board cannot say it's not worth anything. It just says we cannot recognize you as an engineer. But we will recognize you as an engineer.
What do I do? Let's come back to the point. What do I do?
Here we have to differentiate the two words, engineers and engineering. We will recognize you as an engineering graduate. They will not.
So if you recognize me, does that mean that I can go out and get a job?
Yes, you can go out. You can even go and create.
How will you get a job? In fact, you can't get a job. In the engineering case, it's difficult because you can't practice engineering unless you are licensed by the board of engineers.
70% of engineers in the world don't get employed. They go and practice. They go and create jobs. In Kenya, we are really fixated with getting a job, being employed. I cannot be employed before I'm registered.
Okay.
But if I come out of engineering today, I can build a trailer. I'm an accredited engineer. I can build a trailer for a tractor and sell it. I'll make money.
But isn't the certificate important for accountability? For example, when buildings collapse, they say these are engineers. Those engineers were certified to practice and to serve, to use the knowledge in a certain manner by the board that certifies. Because there can then be quack engineers doing engineering all over the place, saying, I got the degree, but there could be a problem with this, the professionals with your degree.
David,
in practice terms.
Kenya is 51 years old, 52 years old. How many buildings have collapsed? And those were registered engineers and architects. Let's be serious.
Yes, the architects and engineers say they were not involved in those structures. They were not there.
Where were they?
They were built.
Fine. So let's move on, because during the break we talked about the crisis of funding. And as we go through the various challenges facing university education, higher education, and we talked about parallel programs. How has that affected the quality of education?
I think we need to understand the history of parallel programs. And the only way to really do this is to look at how universities are funded. Universities are funded in two ways. The first way is to get a grant from government for public universities, and the second way is to raise it through fees. Kenya government in 1991 said that government students will pay 16,800 per year. If you look at these 16,800, since then to date, it's never changed. This is lower than even what we pay in secondary schools, even government secondary schools. This needs to change. If we compare universality of a university to international, you will find that it costs, the unit cost to produce, say, a Bachelor of Education is about 100,000 shillings. To produce an engineer is about 300,000.
Over the course of 4 years or
per year.
Per year?
This is by year. To produce a doctor is about 500,000 to 600,000 per year. Now, government-funded students are paying 16,800. This is really the irony. So for universities to survive, they had to introduce a stream that was called privately sponsored students or Module 2 programs to really supplement the running of the programs. And you will find now, and right now as I talk, some universities have more than 50% privately sponsored students and government sponsored, really to sustain the running of the
The 16,500, that is what a student pays or what the government gives?
That's what the student pays. What government gives on the other side is a grant, and this grant has been coming down. If you look at, for example, the University of Nairobi, this grant that they've been getting it for the last 10 years, the same amount. And yet the number of government-sponsored students have been going up.
Increasing. It's disproportionate. So then what happens? How does the income stream coming from parallel students affect standards? What is the link?
Right now, I think the solution to this is a solution that the law brought. We're looking for a university funding board, which will create what we call the unit cost, an official unit cost. Once we know the unit cost for doing Bachelor of Education is 100,000 per year. If government wants to sponsor 1,000 students, they'll pay 100,000 per year for 1,000 students. If I want to sponsor my child to that program, this is the amount I'll pay. So that the unit cost, the university will now have funds to run like any other university.
That's the solution, but how is it that having parallel programs compromises on quality? That's what I'm failing to understand.
Let's look at it this way. If you have a class of 100 students and 50 of them are from government, and you are charging the unit cost, which is comparable international, to the other 50. If you do the average, you still are underfunded for teaching 100 students. I saw from the tweet that why are professors not doing research? Research costs money. Where do we get this money? We get money from raising through tuition fees or applying for research grants and so forth. So if you look at Kenya in the latest World Bank report on research, we're really way low because we do not have sources of funding either from government or generated through fees that allow a professor to do research.
The same way she was asking about how does the parallel course compromise quality. There is a phenomenon in most public universities of disappearing test papers, examinations, and students have read them going to court. Because the student, in fact, we hear in some cases, you don't mark 300 scripts for a student they throw them like that and say this is B. And then the matter ends there. And some scripts disappear because of those numbers.
Mutegi, what you're saying is what we call fraud. And it doesn't have to have a character of, say, private students or public students. Fraud will occur in everywhere. But let me say what the perception of compromising quality. When we admit a student paid by government, we take the highest point. And in most cases, it's A. Right now in medicine, you cannot get it even with A-. But if we get you with private sponsor, we say if you have a C+, you can come to the university. And if you have to self-sponsor, you must have the funds. So there's a third qualification that says you must have the funds. So we admit people at B for privately sponsored at medical programs. But in this country, to have a degree is a C+. And any degree, whether it's medicine, whether it's engineering, whether it's education, if you have C+, you are a candidate for a degree. So that's really what it is. But this fraudulent behavior must be arrested by the right organ, which we call Senate. This disappearance of papers, marks missing, teachers doing this, it is really managed by Senate.
Okay, the question, true, it is the Senate that has the responsibility. But are you intervening? Because the complaints are large. And you are the ones oversighting the universities. You can't say, Senate, you must crack the whip. Are you doing it? And are there cases you have actually acted on?
Actually, the whip is the public. If you get to know papers are being stolen in University A, that University A will not get students. Okay, they'll get fraudulent students. Because there are also students who like to steal the exams.
In the news, Aviation College. All manner of things are going on at the Aviation College.
Yes, and this is where we're now saying the public will be the ones to crack the whip by not going to Aviation College. If you know something is going wrong, why should you go there?
Somebody is never going to know this, Prof. And the thing that Mutegi was saying here, even talking about the parallel courses, there has been, a blossoming of education opportunities in Kenya.
Right.
But is it all good? The question people are asking is, maybe we are better off with throttling the opportunity so that there are only, enough numbers we can handle, than opening the floodgates. Then we have everybody seeking education, but the quality of that education is in doubt. Because if you go to town here, even in classes, people are flocking there. But is the quality good?
Let me answer it in two parts. From where I sit, opening up for private students is the best thing that ever happened to this country. Because people develop at different levels, at different stages. You may not have taken primary school very seriously or secondary school seriously, but you're not daft.
Yeah.
So getting this opportunity to go back to school, I can tell you some of the privately sponsored students are some of our best industry players right now. And that opportunity was given to them to be private. That's the first one. The second one, I think from where you're saying the quality, the numbers become more. We really can only answer that by saying we need more quality universities. And that's the mandate that we have at the moment. We're really looking at
it's about the human capacity. The professorial, the lecturers, can they meet the demand? Because universities will open and will have this moonlighting lecturers here and there, spread across. A lecturer is teaching in 4 universities, at Maseno, at Moi, in Nairobi, in Laikipia, trying to spread out all this. Those are all numbers of students. Quality-wise, are we able to sustain the demand? That is the question here. And who is checking that, saying, no, this is enough, you can't take more than this?
In Africa, the single most challenge for universities is staff, and staff with PhDs. You know, to teach at the university, you require PhD. So in Kenya, we are not an exception. In fact, we are on the lower side in the continent. So our solution is to get more PhDs. If I have one PhD, and Muteki may know, we used to have a professor in engineering whose specialization was in lightning, arresting lightning. He was the only one in the country. So when we had 4 universities with degrees, he had to teach on those because we did not have any other person. So this is what we find ourselves with specialized areas. We have only one PhD. He has to be the thematic leader for more than one university. And we have to accept that as we grow. But I think for us to see quality university education, we must focus in producing PhD lecturers.
But what you're saying is a specialist. If you have a situation where somebody is teaching history, he has a PhD in history, he's teaching in 5 universities, does he have the ability to teach and mark the exams for those students in 5 universities? Why can't you put a limit and say, hey, you cannot teach more than maybe 2 or 3 years?
Actually, we found in the classical courses, let me call history a classical course, that the professors are not producing the other PhDs. Actually, they're remaining alone. In fact, if you go into where we have more PhDs,
in the arts,
it is really in the sciences. Very surprisingly, we're getting more PhDs in all the graduations from science.
That has to do with the emphasis on STEM courses, on the sciences. And the fact that we're being told that for countries to advance, you need more graduates in the sciences, and that has come at the expense of humanities.
Actually, I was telling David earlier on, if you look at films, you know, we really are saying Nigerians have Nollywood, even Tanzanians now are doing the but where is the university in Kenya that does filmmaking?
Cinematography.
Cinematography. We don't have it. You cannot say cinematography is classics. It has all the science. It has all the knowledge that we need in STEM. So I guess really it's misplaced priority.
Okay, this is what some of our viewers are saying. It took about 10 years for Egerton agricultural engineering graduates to be acknowledged. Almost all are not practicing because of frustration from the board. That came from Gemo, and this goes back to the dispute between professional boards and yourselves. More University Computer Engineering is not registered to the ERB, but we did 99% of the courses. With electrical engineering, with 100% the same lecturer. Some Some was VC when that course began. We need to register for the ERB. I'm a part-time lecturer at the TUK. I've been in the profession teaching for 17 years. Why can't I get a permanent job? They say the Engineering Association body does not recognize the Moi University graduates to teach.
Let me respond particularly to the Moi Communication Engineering course. This is a course that was fully funded by Safaricom. The market was Safaricom. They need communication engineers, not electronics engineers, not electrical engineers. They funded the program for 10 years, and they were taking all the graduates. Now, in the absence of registration of communication engineering by the board, Safaricom now sources their communication engineers from South Africa. So this is now where there is a disconnect between professional bodies and engineering. And I think this is still part of what I was saying, a conflict in law. Staff, 17 years, I would love to know if he has a PhD. Chances are he doesn't. To be a lecturer, you have to have a PhD. 10 years of recognition of Egerton University engineering programs has always been like for Masinde Muliro, for Kenyatta University. Yeah, the traditional engineering schools was University of Nairobi, Moi University, Jomo Kenyatta, and if you are not in those three, sometimes there were problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kowach, who's a technician engineer, challenges you and says that you're avoiding the question or you have no information. For one to qualify for an engineering tender, you must be a registered engineer.
Yeah, I'm not avoiding the question. Technician engineers right now are also not in the current law. And there is a bill in Parliament that is seeking to establish technologists and technicians of Kenya under a board that will be called Technologists and Technicians Board. And this will register people who do not have a first degree in engineering but are in the technology of engineering. If you build a car, you go through a technology program. We now have Bachelor of Technology, board at Moi, at TUK, at Technical University of Mombasa. These are the people who this board will be registering. There has been, so to speak, technicians not being part of the engineers in general. Okay.
But still on tender, someone else, Matthew and Kissy, you can't get a public job if you're not registered.
Yes, that is in the law. You have to get to work for the civil service or the public service. Now they're called public officers. You have to have a registration. Unfortunately, universities that are public universities are also in the public service, so they have to be registered to teach.
This is from a parent. Tell that professor, universities' fees have gone up to 35,000 shillings. That's what I paid in cash last week at JQAT. My daughter's there, a fresher, pursuing a B something in entrepreneurship. In addition, I paid 14,000 for accommodation per semester.
Yeah, for the parent, I would really love to know what they were paying for that child in Form 4 compared to the 35,000. Because really, at the university, that education is a lot more value and a lot more cost. As I said earlier, the minimum really cost for a degree is about 100,000.
I think that the parent is reacting to you saying that it's at public universities you're paying 16,000.
16,800 is a government directive since 1991. It has not been varied. Even for secondary schools, there is a directive from the ministry that says it's that amount. So if a university is able to charge a little more than that, they're not following the directive. But at the moment, it sounds a ridiculous directive that you charge 16,800 for a degree program.
You mentioned something about areas of knowledge or possible degrees that are not being offered in this country.
David, let's come to that because that's a broader discussion. We've got to take a break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Do tell us what your experience of higher education is or has been, whether you're a parent or a guardian or student. Our SMS number is 22422, or you can use the hashtag Cheche if you're messaging us through Twitter.